Hello and welcome back. We're back with the hinge again, but today I want to go over a workflow that is not really specific to this, but this is a good way to show it. So let's say, for example, in this case that I wanted to create a new hinge that's a different size, but I don't really want to do the same thing again where I have to recreate the assembly from scratch. In this case it's very simple, so it's trivial because it's such a simple assembly, but if it was a bit more involved, really what I want to do is copy the assembly and the part studio and have this new copy of the assembly use the parts of my copy of the part studio. Now with a file-based CAD you could kind of cheat and create a copy of the part in the assembly, open the part first and make the assembly point to the copy of the part, and they wouldn't know better. But Onshape keeps track of everything in database. You can't just brute force it that way. There is, however, a process that I'm going to show to do this. It's not obvious at first, but it's actually not that hard to do either. So I have created, I've cleaned up a little bit the document to create a folder where I put the specific hinge part and assembly, and I also changed the name just so we can understand what's going on here. So the first step to doing this would be to actually move this out to another document, a temporary document. So I'm just going to right click on the folder and go move to document. And now the important part is by default it will want to grab the generic part studio, but we don't want that because we don't want to create a copy of that because we want our specific hinge parts to still use and reference the original generic one. So we're going to do this, and it doesn't matter what it's called because it's, I'm going to call it temp hinge, and I'm going to hit move. Now what happens, it shows me that it moved it to this new document, gives me the option to open it in a new tab. And if I follow this, you can see that I have just this specific hinge folder here, assembly is here, and you will notice here that it is now showing this icon, which means this is a version. And if I were to edit this, I can see that it's pointing to the original document here. And I can even right click on here, go open link document, and it's going to take me back to where it came from right here. Now, back in here, you can see that the specific hinge is gone now because it's been moved. But if I open the version and history, I can go back to the version that it automatically created a version when I moved it out so that it could reference it. But if I right click on version 1, so if I go to version 1, the specific hinge is still there. But if I go to my workspace, it's gone. But I can just right click on here and restore it. And now I have it back. So I've got my specific hinge in here, my generic hinge, and in that other document I've got basically a copy of it, but it is still pointing to what we wanted. So far so good, but maybe I want it all in the same document. I want both hinges in the same document. So the way to do this is to move this back. The only trick here is you can't have an empty part studio with 0 tabs. So I'm going to create, well, why don't I create a feature studio just for the fun of it. I'm going to move it out of the folder because I don't want to copy. And then I'm going to right click on this again, move to document, but here I will go to my recently opened one, and the top one is going to be where we just were. And I can do that. And now, if I come back to my origin one, I have a new folder that says specific hinge. And I could rename it, I suppose, to make it a bit less confusing. But you can see that it renamed the parts Part Studio and the assembly, even though, I mean, it's helpful because you know that this is the one that just got moved in, but Onshape doesn't actually care. You can have things named the exact same thing, but the fact that it renames it does make it a little bit easier. I don't know why the undo didn't work. Interesting. Anyway, doesn't matter. Point is that we now have our 2 copies, and if I were to edit this to change it to a 2 by 1 inch hinge, oh, millimeters, I should really change the units because I keep doing this. 2 by 1 inch. Now this assembly is now using these new parts. So everything's good. I've created a copy of both the assembly and the Part Studio. And for more complicated cases, this can be quite helpful. So the way to do it, move it out of your document into a temporary one. Make sure you don't bring anything you don't want to. Restore it to before, so you get it back, and then go to your new document and move it to the same document again. If that's what you want. If you're happy with the new document, you can leave it like that, obviously. But that's how you create a copy. Might be a little bit hard to follow, but if you did want to try it out, you'll see what happens. I think it will make sense if you try it. Anyway, let me know if that was helpful, and see you next time.